so close to my face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All righty. Hi, guys. See, do we have Terry in here yet? All right, Terry. Promoting you to a panelist. Do you get it? Hey, Terry. All right, we can see your screen. I don't know if your mic is on. I can't hear anything.
How about now, Abby?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. And are you seeing my screen?
The missing pieces of marketing management.
Yeah. You're not seeing any notes or anything, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, well, we'll get started now. So welcome everybody to room 1. This is our first keynote of the day with Terry Sullivan. I'm going to read you a quick bio. Terry Sullivan has 30 years of experience as an entrepreneur and corporate employee. As a marketing consultant and small business coach, Terry has worked with hundreds of businesses of all sizes over the course of his career. Terry has 12 years of experience as an assistant professor and adjunct professor at Webster University School of Business and School of Communications at St. Louis, Missouri. Over the years, he has taught and developed courses in a variety of subjects, including advertising research, analytics for strategic communications, and digital marketing, among others. Terry is the author of our upcoming student release, Marketing Management Today, which will be published this summer. He is also the author of 6 to Fix, 6 strategic areas of marketing to grow a more valuable small business. So, we got a Webster alumna here.
Oh, great.
Nice to see you, Amy.
Abby, can you see my camera?
I can.
Okay. I didn't want to deprive the audience of this on a Monday morning.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
So are we good to get started?
Yeah, if you're ready to go.
Okay. So I guess the first thing I wanted to say was, as the first presenter on the first day of a conference on a Monday morning, I'm praying that you've had some coffee. I'm Terry Sullivan. Welcome to ProfCon 2021. I'm so happy to be here with you. So 19% of undergraduate degrees are in business. And if my sources are reliable, that's about 381,000 students per year. And the trend is that marketing job descriptions continue to become more demanding, expectations are high, competition is fierce. This is a job description grabbed from Indeed for a marketing specialist. And basically, it's a description for a recent grad or an inexperienced marketer. And did I lose that? Okay. And so, the thing, let's take a quick look at this and look at what they're looking for a newbie marketer. So communication skills, website management, measure performance metrics from social media, digital advertising, email, and sales. Translate data into refined strategy for the company for execution on its execution and its strategies. And what we're looking at here is this is just for an inexperienced marketer. So the trend is that the requirements are getting stiffer. They're expecting a lot more, and that's what we're seeing quite a bit. So my question is, what's the point of a college education, and specifically a business or marketing education? Is it a job? Certainly, that's what most people think, my students among them. I always ask my classes if they think the time, money, and effort likely incurring significant debt to obtain a degree is going to be worth it. At Webster University, where I teach, we have a lot of first-generation college grads, so the fear of the unknown is pretty great. Invariably, all hands go up when I ask the question, are you concerned about whether the college degree will be worth it? But plenty of research backs up the fact that students with degrees earn $1 million more over their lifetimes than their counterparts without degrees. And on the other hand, we have industry gurus and pundits advocating that one can obtain the equivalent of a college education by going to YouTube and learning on their own for free. Google, Microsoft, and others have also made headlines stating they won't require degrees for certain positions. So again, is the point of a college education simply to get a job? Personally, I don't think it is. I think it's about confidence. Of course, students and their parents want to know that they'll be prepared for the job market. And we are helping prepare them for the job market, aren't we? But there are a lot of things that have to happen before they're ready for that. One can be prepared and not be confident. So confidence is at the top of the list. A minor league baseball player who gets called up to the big leagues, they can already hit. Technically, they're prepared to hit. But if they don't have the confidence to believe that they can hit in the big leagues, it's probably not going to go well. So the same goes with saying that it's just about a job and, only concentrating on getting a run. You still have to cross the bases first. And one of the most important bases that our graduates are going to have to, reach is the area of confidence. So by way of a top 10 list, that's what we're going to talk about today, the missing pieces of marketing management. And these are culled from a lifetime in the business world, as well as the insights that I've gleaned as an instructor. But first, just let me tell you a little bit about myself. Abby mentioned that I teach at Webster University. So like most of you, I do have experience in higher ed, and I teach in the School of Communications and the School of Business at Webster University in St. Louis. Go Cardinals. 5 years as a full-time assistant professor and 7 years as an adjunct. But as a full-timer, I was also an academic advisor. I've created numerous courses. I have a master's degree in international business from St. Louis University, and I studied English and management as an undergrad. Additionally, as Abby mentioned, I'm a Stu Kent author with Marketing Management Courseware publishing this summer, which I will tell you a little bit about later. Excuse me, I have to take one quick sip of water. It's amazing how when you speak, all of a sudden you become very dry mouthed. But I also have 32 years of business experience. And that's mostly what I'm going to be approaching this presentation from today, from that perspective. And I know that's hard to believe that I have 32 years of business experience based on my youthful good looks. But I've started several businesses. I've successfully sold a company, been a corporate executive, and as well as a staff marketer at a lot of small and large companies. And for the last several years, I've been running a marketing consultancy called Strategic Glue. And I also do business coaching for eMyth for small businesses. So my hope today is to share insights with you as an instructor, but primarily as a business person who's hired a lot of employees over the years, and particularly marketing and salespeople. So this presentation should last about 30 minutes. I think you will find the top 10 list compelling. Certainly some of these won't be new to you, but hopefully some will. And I will conclude with just a brief introduction to the Marketing Management Today courseware, my contact information, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So in an effort to check my assertions and assumptions as I was putting together this top 10 list, I asked several former students who have entered the job market within the last few years what really helped them in college and what they wish they had received to be better prepared for the job market. And I'll show those throughout as we go through the top 10 list. So the first quote is from Gina Reeves. She graduated in 2020. And one of the first things she said, actually the first thing she said, was responding to ambiguity. In particular, it's helped her prepare for the not so cut and dried direction that I can say every day I have to adapt to in the workplace. And as it turns out, and I'm not stacking the deck here, I actually did the top 10 list first, then went to them for their feedback. Ambiguity is number 1 on my list. And the sign that you see here hanging in my office was actually given to me by Gina and a group of students shortly before they graduated. And if you asked any of my former students, most would probably make mention of ambiguity, as I hammered it home pretty often. I would ask each class if they were comfortable with ambiguity, and most were not familiar with the word. But once I told them what it was, I don't recall one hand going up indicating that they were comfortable with it. And of all the skills that they can cultivate, I truly believe this is the most important. It will be expected that they know the 4 Ps, the target markets, customer lifetime value, what have you. But what isn't expected, but what's sorely needed in businesses today are employees who can get it done without hand-holding, without being told what to do. And this is exactly what, dealing with ambiguity is about. Those students who can just run with an assignment or a project and just seem to get it and excel at it, even if you didn't give them much direction. That's what I'm talking about. But millennials and Gen Z students have a couple of challenges. First, their reputation precedes them. A lot of hiring managers or boomers and Gen Xers who have a bias that these students are slackers, need hand-holding, or just don't have a great work ethic. Secondly, a lot of students did grow up with helicopter parents. That's the elephant in the room, I guess. So allowing them to skin their proverbial knees in our classes by giving them the space to learn what questions to ask and finding the answers on their own is huge. This is a true reflection of the real world. Second on the top 10 list is entrepreneurial thinking. Many schools have picked up this mantle, and that's a great thing because it's very much needed. First, most of our students are not going to work at Coke, Nike, or Apple. What's more, so many of our examples and case studies reference these global, established, iconic brands. And that's great because they are an amazing source of learning. But many, if not most of our students, will work for a small business, which based on the government's description can be anywhere from a few employees to 500 employees, depending on the industry. But small businesses are where a lot of jobs are created, and it's where our students can cut their teeth, make an impact, and possibly be a launching pad if they want to move to a larger organization. This generation of students see and experience entrepreneurship all around them every day. I had one student who was literally selling vintage clothing online with a subscribed audience of about 1,000 people. Oh, excuse me. And so when I told him that he was already succeeding in digital marketing and that companies will pay him for his knowledge, he was pretty shocked. They're excited about it, and many know it may be a viable path for them, either by choice or if they can't find a job or maybe land the type of job that they want. But even if they work for a large or a small business, the ability to think entrepreneurially like an owner will only benefit them regardless of where they work. This is Tori Grassi, class of 2019, and she said, something I wish more professors talked about in school is that not all clients are going to be glamorous. In fact, most aren't at all on the surface. And this segues very nicely into business to business and unknown brands. B2B is conspicuously absent in a lot of courses and educational materials. And it's understandable because consumer goods is what everybody relates to. But a significant amount of marketing is B2B. And an important facet of B2B and marketing overall is sales. And as we all probably know, sales and marketing should go together like peanut butter and jelly, and they should always get along. For those in the know, that's a bad joke. But B2B comprises so many companies and opportunities not always present in B2C environments. B2B represents a lot of jobs, and when it comes to digital marketing and e-commerce, specifically B2B e-commerce, which dwarfs B2C e-commerce. Many of our students will graduate with high expectations of working at well-known brands or companies. And that's great because there's so much opportunity, but with unknown and non-glamorous brands. One student recently told me that the fun sexy alcohol brand that she was working on at an agency was the first to pull their work at the beginning of the pandemic. Currently, she's working on a large brand in agriculture. She said the budgets are much larger, the security, job security, much greater, even if the product isn't as fun. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. But on a quick personal note, some years ago, I was consulting with a small company, and I eventually joined them as VP of Sales and Marketing. And this was, a very small company, an unknown brand at the time, and it actually sounded kind of boring to me. But what I came to realize is that the passion that I found for marketing was at that job. And it wasn't at all about the product. It was about using the art and science of marketing to help customers and to build a business. And I easily could have missed that. And so with our students, they don't know what they don't know, but there's just a massive opportunity for them with both business to business as well as unknown brands. This is Rachel Kearns, class of 2018. And she said, I wish I would have been more prepared for prioritizing work and juggling multiple pressing projects at once. I feel like my real job is an Ironman marathon that I have to take at a dead sprint for the rest of my life. And this segues very well into number 4, which is thinking on their feet. This may sound obvious, but it really isn't. In a way, it relates to ambiguity. A lot of times, especially in smaller companies, you have to learn how to react to whatever is coming at you. Many companies are running lean, so resources, both human and financial, are limited, and time is always of the essence. So they have to learn how to react to that. And of course, we assume that we'll be able to be proactive, schedule things correctly, do A before B, etc. But oftentimes it just doesn't work like that. So being able to think on your feet and deal with the unexpected, changing or unknown is really important. Some people have a hard time dealing with an environment that might not be too structured, but it's a fantastic skill to cultivate because it's going to make them more resilient and more powerful as they go along. So thinking on your feet isn't just about dealing with the unknown or shifting priorities. It's about juggling multiple things at the same time. It's about learning how to react positively, reflecting professionalism and decorum versus crumbling like a house of cards. I had one student who had straight A's her entire life. She was an athlete, a musician, you name it, she had it in spades. And I'm still convinced that I'll be working for her someday. But anyway, right before graduation, I told her the only thing I worried about was what will happen when she gets a kink in her armor, when someone doesn't like her work, when she gets a less than stellar review, or if she actually fails at something. Our students need to think on their feet and just understand that a lot of things that are coming at them, they don't have control over. And in many cases, people aren't going to tell you how to do it. They're not going to hold your hand, and they're also not going to necessarily care how you feel about it. So this is Christina Ingersoll, and she said, I have yet to make one marketing plan outside of school, and I've held only marketing positions since leaving. Most of my job is project management, managing projects, making sure deadlines are made, coordinating teams, etc. This segues into two sides of the coin. So when I talk about marketing in general to my classes, we always talk about, two sides of the coin being strategy and execution. And strategy is generally misunderstood in the real world, and it's often misunderstood by students. So strategy, right, is what you're going to do and not do, the big idea, the thing that conveys differentiation and competitive advantage. And the execution supports the strategy. But chances are pretty good students starting out aren't going to be working a lot in strategy. So they're going to be on that other half of marketing, which is execution. And typically the marketing department is comprised of individuals who handle both, right? But in many cases, a lot of the strategy comes from upper management. So the real unsung hero, and a big missing piece of marketing management is actually project management, which is like a bridge between the two sides of the coin, strategy and execution. Without it, everything falls. So we teach students a lot of strategy and execution, but how much do we talk to them about project management? A huge part of marketing is managing all the moving pieces, keeping them on track, making sure that people are meeting deadlines, reporting on progress and results, etc. So strategy is great, but without someone in the pivotal role of managing the projects related to the execution, the results are probably going to be disappointing. This is another quote from Tori, who said, employers are looking for people who are good people, a cultural fit, and they're willing to learn. She said, my boss literally told me that they hired me because I was a good culture fit for the team. An industry is learnable, but being a good person is not. And this is number 6 on the list, which is empathy. We've heard a lot about empathy recently as kind of a marketing tool. To me, it's become sort of a buzzword, which I think is a shame for the importance of what empathy is. But given the importance of empathy to us as human beings, it's really important for students to get in touch with it, assuming they can, for a lot of reasons. First is the ability to think like the customer, but also like a business person or the company that they're working for, and know how it feels to be in each pair of those shoes. Successful marketers practice putting both hats on, the customers and the companies. And second, empathy is the ultimate relationship builder with internal coworkers, vendors, customers, etc. But the other key aspect is that self-awareness is closely interrelated with empathy. And one of my favorite things to talk about with students is what I like to refer to as JAF, or more affectionately known as the Jackass Factor. Students need to know early on that companies today are concerned about culture and a positive work environment that fosters teamwork. The soft skills, as Stu mentioned earlier, are really important. It doesn't matter how smart they are, how good their chops are, nobody wants a jackass on the team. And another important learning for me over the years has been empathizing with my target market, the students, and the importance of context and relevance in how they feel. As Gen Xers, they don't necessarily resonate with the brands that I'm very familiar with. I actually had a master's branding class a couple of years ago, and a mid to late 20s student said, I'm very interested in the brand Supreme, and could we study that? And we modified things a little bit and did sort of a case study on the brand Supreme. And the shift in motivation was palpable because the students were very familiar with it. It was, within their relevance and their context, it resonated with them. And, at that point, I realized you can teach a dog new tricks. The student becomes the teacher. So this is Tony Bettini. Tony graduated in 2020, and he gave me a lot of information, and I'll just kind of sum it up here. But he said, Google Analytics, SEO, CRM, every employer is looking for that kind of, skill set right now. He's glad that he has some experience with HubSpot and Salesforce, which he got in my class. We did the certifications. But the other part that he said is that, taking Excel courses, in marketing, you're going to be doing a lot of stuff with spreadsheets, most likely. So that goes into technology, Technology is number 7 on the list. And as all of you know, digital marketing has brought technology to the forefront in some pretty significant ways. But as savvy as our digital native students are, it doesn't mean they understand how to apply technology to the strategy and execution. So, marketing and technology are 2 fingers on the same hand. So it's important that students have a working knowledge of tools and systems, but that they're able to, apply it and think critically about the technology for marketing purposes. And on the other side of that thought is the expectation from employers, especially for today's students, that they have a firm grasp of digital marketing and the technology that underpins it. I worked on a data personalization project a couple of years ago, and I worked with an internal team at a company on some HubSpot work that we were doing. And this company had several marketing coordinators, and as most of you probably know, coordinators are generally pretty green who do low-level work or lower-level work. But these coordinators at this particular company were very adept HubSpot users. I was absolutely blown away. And I think we're seeing that the expectation is changing and that less tenured employees are expected to do more, and they're doing more advanced work than they did even 5 years ago. The emphasis on data platforms, tools, it's essential. And even small businesses are leveraging really sophisticated technology. And another really important aspect of technology is the measurability and analytics side of it. More and more marketing departments are expected to produce results, but just reporting on the results isn't enough. You need to be reporting on the progress that you're making as you're achieving those results. So having an understanding of the technology of analytics, for sure something like Google Analytics, but even dashboard tools like Databox, Domo, Tableau at the enterprise level. Our students don't need to be experts at it. I don't think anybody's expecting that, but to have a working knowledge of it and to kind of understand the application of it is what's important. So number 8 is e-commerce, and this certainly could fall under technology, but it's obviously a much bigger topic, especially as it relates to subscription-based and recurring revenue models. So if you scour marketing job postings, there are many for software as a service related businesses with a focus on monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue. But even for businesses that aren't pure e-commerce plays, there is a pronounced focus to develop e-commerce channels in both B2C and B2B. In the digital marketing, lead generation, customer acquisition, customer retention that surrounds e-commerce and these business models has become more technical and specialized, but requires at least a working knowledge for today's students. And then there's Amazon. That little company with the little known subscription model Prime, to which more than a third of the US population has a subscription to buy products from its own platform. Amazon has 1.9 million sellers, and approximately 87% of those sell through other digital channels like company websites. So marketing management students need to understand how to drive e-commerce revenue, manage multiple online channels, and measure the results. This is Angela Karras. She graduated in 2018, and she works at an agency, and she deals a lot with clients. And she said how to effectively and purposefully build, nurture, and manage client relationships, how to set expectations, how to articulate yourself to your client. And I really included this also because, we think of clients as just external, but inside, even if you're working for the brand or the company, you're going to have internal clients, and you're going to have to, make presentations. You're going to have to justify, your decisions. So that goes to communications, number 9 on our list. The stories of college students who don't write are well documented, but it is a real detriment to these students as they become employees. Writing impacts so many things in the workplace, from internal communications to external communications with clients and vendors. And a marketing manager is going to have numerous internal stakeholders with whom they'll be communicating, probably via email or through apps like Slack or Asana. Additionally, they will typically deal with outside vendors and consultants, and again, communicate via those same tools. And they'll need to document how they're going to execute on the overall strategy or a specific campaign. So being able to articulate their thoughts, apply their knowledge, and do it in the written form is really important. And us as educators, we as educators need to help them understand how important that is, and to try to continue to hone that skill, even if they aren't a strong writer now. And the other side of communications is oral communications. The other big thing that is a challenge for a lot of our students. So being able to verbally communicate thoughts and ideas with internal and external customers is really essential. So much of on-the-job work is meeting with bosses, coworkers, other departments, or customers. And that's done orally. And being able to think and apply confidently is really important. So I'm sure many of you do this. I try to incorporate oral exams or quizzes, as well as presentations that are assignments on a regular basis. But I often tell my students, sort of the litmus test of the knowledge that they've gained from my courses is being able to talk the talk in a conversation or on interviews or internships for a job. If they can hold an intelligent conversation, be able to think on their feet and talk about things where they're applying and thinking critically, that's a great indicator that they're going to nail the interview or the internship. So our last quote is again from Gina Reeves, and she told me, a lot about how many people are expecting to see certifications now. She's recently gone through, many months of looking for a job, and she did land one. But she said, be responsible for your own learning. You have to apply yourself, and you want to get the most out of your learning and experiences. And that goes to number 10, which is lifelong learning. We're all familiar with this concept of the lifelong learner, but we're educators, and students need to understand that technology has changed our collective thoughts, actions, and behaviors. And to keep up with these changes, students need to understand that their learning is just beginning when they sit in our classrooms and when they graduate from our schools. So self-motivation is a big thing in this area, and resources are in abundance, from HubSpot's Academy to Drift Insider to Google Skillshop, there's just an abundance of resources for students to continually hone their skills and their craft. And the Francis Bacon quote, knowledge is power, is really true. There are countless great business books and content that our students can take advantage of, but it's not just business knowledge that they need to be cultivating. So much of marketing is impacted by other things. The happenings of life all around us, learning truly is a lifelong endeavor. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a Stu Kent author, and this summer Marketing Management Today will publish with the accompanying Mimic marketing management software simulation. And when I've told people that I'm writing a college level textbook, they typically ask what inspired me to do this. And I always say, I wrote it for two reasons. I wanted to present content to students in a more accessible, engaging way that will resonate with them. And I wanted to help instructors with courseware that's comprehensive yet flexible. So I think this courseware is different for a few reasons. One, the content was really written in a more casual tone with countless examples and references that are really relevant to today's students. The content's broad enough and deep enough, but it's presented in really digestible chunks. And the content is also just presented simply through 5 modules: brand, customers, products, communications, and technology. And within each module, there's 2 chapters, one from the customer perspective and one from the company perspective. And that's what, a real crux of the project was, to present material in a way that's going to reinforce that students need to think like a marketer as well as a customer. And so there are a slew of resources available with this course, 12 videos like the one that you're seeing right here on Supreme, lesson plans, lecture slides, assignments, projects, quizzes, all to help make your lives easier. As an instructor, I know the difficulty of, how much time it takes and how much effort it takes to try and put together the right resources. And I think this does it in a way that's also going to give you the flexibility if you're teaching an 8-week or a 16-week course. And finally, the Mimic simulation software is really amazing. It places them as a marketing manager in a fictional company. And there's 8 rounds of real world scenarios and activities so that they can apply their knowledge, they can think critically, they can make decisions, which will bolster their skills. So it's really active learning at its best. So if you're interested in learning more about that, it is publishing this summer, early this summer. Speak to your Stu Kent rep. And with that, I would like to sincerely thank all of you for your time and consideration, especially on a Monday morning having to deal with me first thing. If you have any questions or comments, I love to hear from you. I love talking about all of this stuff. You can reach me at Terry@Strategic Glue or through LinkedIn. And so I think with that, we're going to start the Q&A session. Is that right, Abby?
Yeah, right before we go into the Q&A, since you just gave us a beautiful segue into it, we're going to show y'all a video about Terry's new products coming out. So let me share my screen. Oh, share screen. Okay, I'm going to take over for a second.
Okay.
Where'd it- I think I missed. Okay. It didn't ask me to share the audio, so hopefully it'll work.
Welcome to Mimic Marketing Management, the
Did y'all hear that? Okay.
only marketing management simulation in the world that gives students hands-on experience managing multiple brands. In this simulation, students take on the roles of assistant marketing manager Supply Co., where they are tasked with making strategic marketing decisions for multiple brands. As part of the simulation, students will create positioning statements and value propositions based on market research, adjust a brand's marketing mix based on data and customer reviews, calculate CLV and CAC in order to select profitable market segments to target, analyze revenue and competitor data to select and optimize pricing, evaluate and select the big idea and creative assets for a marketing campaign, rely on marketing campaign data to allocate ad spend, design products based on customer reviews and market research, craft an email to communicate with distributors during a crisis, allocate a high-level marketing budget based on historical data and corporate strategies. Mimic Marketing Management is completely auto-graded and provides students individualized feedback every round. It also pairs perfectly with the Marketing Management Today courseware. Give your students the most current and true-to-life marketing management simulation in the world with Mimic Marketing Management.
Sweet. That was really cool. That was the first time I'd seen it, so I hope y'all really like that. There should be a link posted in the chat to our launch event where you'll get to learn more about the marketing management simulation and digital courseware. So make sure you look out for that. And then let me get my other screen up real quick. We'll jump into a Q&A. So make sure you're posting in the chat or in the Q&A little button down here at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So first question we have, Terry, is from Sonal. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Completely agree. Written communication. However, grading written work is a slog, and I always fall behind each term. Any suggestions for how to create written marketing assignments that are doable for instructors? So beyond the rubrics and stuff.
Well, that's a huge point, and I run into that as we all do. What I try to do is shorter write-in assignments, even if it's just one pagers, and try to get them to articulate their thoughts, and apply those thoughts in the written way, but in short form. Even having to answer certain questions, just short answer questions, I find, it's still going to take more time to go through. But I feel it's really worth it because, when they get out there, they're just not going to have multiple choice and true and false, questions like a lot of our tests and quizzes are. So I hope that's helpful. But, again, I just try to do maybe shorter, more frequent writing assignments.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we also had another question. Would this marketing management book be too much for high school?
That's a great question. I don't think it would. I mean, I think you could certainly apply it to that. I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but I will say, sometimes I get students in my classes who don't necessarily have the same business background, and some of them are really green. For whatever reason, maybe they don't have, as strong of a background or the required courses that some of the other students have. So I think, in a more advanced high school setting, it could certainly probably be applicable. I think some of the concepts might be a little advanced, but you know what? There's plenty of students today who are doing advanced work at the high school level. So yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And then we had another question come in. How do you teach empathy to your students? Any specific examples?
Man, that is a great question. Empathy is a really deep subject. I actually did my thesis on empathy back in the day when I was going to school with Thomas Jefferson. And the idea was to turn it into a book because it's such a valuable thing. But I haven't done that yet. Stu Kent's kept me busy with this one. But I think creating scenarios, even in class, where they have to really kind of put themselves in the place of somebody else. In our society, we're largely about the individual, right? Because we have to kind of go out and get a job and make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and everything else. And sometimes you forget about your fellow man. And from a marketing perspective, being able to think like your customer, being able to think like your owner, in terms of the company that you work for, those are really important things to do. And I think if you can do some simulations in class where they're having to do changing roles, for instance, or really understanding from a case study standpoint, okay, if you were the customer in this situation, how does that make you feel? How does it make you feel that your coworker is the owner of the business and he's not going to be able to make payroll? Things like that. And honestly, it's a really great suggestion. And the more I think about it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a project assignment to this courseware that will be just that, an empathy assignment in class. So I appreciate the suggestion and I hope that will be helpful for you. And I hope somebody's making a note of this, but if not, I'll go back to the recording and make sure that we do that.
Definitely. Thank you. That sounds like a really great idea to include it in the textbook. So we also had another question about the book. How much of this will focus specifically on social media strategy and execution?
Great question. So it doesn't go, it's not as deep as a standalone social media course, but within the communications module, there is a lot on social media. Also within the technology module, there is, coverage of some of the tools and platforms. So, I think it goes pretty deep. I think also with assignments and with the simulation that you'll have good coverage there. But again, it's not a standalone social media courseware package. But as I understand it, I think you're going to have, the ability to access it and see the content before you actually adopt it. So I would, highly encourage you to do that.
Yes.
I hope
thank
that
you.
helps.
Definitely. So we have another question come in. COVID forced many programs online. Have you found a higher incidence of just check a box attitude? And any tactics for engagement that you have found re-energize the students that online is actually a very important practical experience we need as well?
Great question. When in the fall of whatever year, 2020, I was teaching an on-the-ground class at Webster, and we were sitting there with our masks on and doing, what probably all of you were doing, and we decided to just move it online completely. And the fact that they were able to sit there without masks on and see each other and communicate, I think was really, really helpful. And what we kind of stressed in that particular class was we're just going to have conversations. It's not going to be me just lecturing. What I have personally found is they learn so much, students learn so much by just having an active dialogue and conversation and, encouraging them to speak up. I didn't force them to, but really all of them did of their own accord. So I would just try to foster that particular environment to make it, much more about an engaging two-way dialogue or, however many people in the class versus, us kind of just speaking to them. I hope that's helpful. And again, if you want to talk about this offline, send me an email and I'd be happy to engage with you on it.
Great, thank you. Terry is also available on LinkedIn, everybody, if you want to connect with him. Also check out his awesome post of him handstand on a skateboard. Super impressive.
Oh, my.
Something new about Terry. So we have another question. Do you think psychology to some extent should be made a part of consumer behavior courses? Don't know.
Yeah, I do. I do. I think psychology is, so rampant in really all of marketing and business. I mean, I don't know. The older I get, certainly the more I think and realize that psychology is just ever present in every facet of our lives, and to answer your question, I do. Yeah.
Thank you. So we have a question about MBAs. So I teach marketing management to MBAs. I currently use HBS readings and cases, and the students really like the class, but I'm intrigued by the book and simulation. Do you have a table of contents to share at this point?
It's actually being, finalized right now. So as I understand it, our publication date or published date is the end of June. So we're finalizing everything, and your Stu Kent rep would certainly be able to share that with you. When I got my master's degree, we did a lot of HBS case studies too, and they are awesome. And we did talk about this quite a bit of, would this be applicable in the MBA master's program setting? And I think it will. I think you can certainly upscale it, if you will. That's probably not the right term, but take it up a notch for a master's program. But again, talk to your Stu Kent rep and look at the TOC, and I think they would probably give you access to the content when it publishes, so you can check it out. But if you have specific questions, or if there's things that you're really looking for and you want to talk to me about it, email me or hit me up through LinkedIn, and I would be glad to converse with you about it.
Awesome, thank you. Don't forget, launch event June 25th. That's in 2 Fridays. Don't miss that. We'll learn more about the book and sim. So we have another question. How do you teach for ambiguity in an academic world that has often trained students to expect rubrics?
Man, that is a great question. I have to tell you, the rubrics are just a great thing, obviously, but man, when they get out there in the quote unquote real world, which I hate to use that term because I don't know, but they are going to be faced with just a litany of ambiguity, so I try to teach it from just the standpoint of them first being aware of it. Because, again, I ask every single class, how many of you are familiar with ambiguity? Nobody raises their hand. I explain what it is, and they're like, man, that sounds horrible. Because everybody's so used to having sort of a prescribed thing, right? Here's what you need to do. Here's how you do it. They're not going to encounter that. And if they do, it'll be a rare occasion. So what I try to do is, like if I give an assignment, I may say, hey, you know what? Here's a paper you need to do. Here's the format of the paper. But other than that, I kind of leave the details up to them. Or if we're working on a presentation, I try to keep it pretty vague, so that they can get to the place where they're coming to their own decisions. And it's as much about them asking the right questions and finding the answers as it is to just doing the assignment well. I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. We have some comments in the chat about how chairs often ask about the rubric. And I know students, when I was a student, all my teammates be like, what's the rubric say? Where's an example? So it's definitely hard to untrain yourself and to untrain others and students. So thank you for that. Let's see, had another question. So can you talk a little bit about how diversity and inclusion is discussed in your book?
Well, that's a great question. Specifically, I won't say that was a prime consideration, but I think that most of the, examples and, things that we reference in the book in terms of cases, we use a lot of examples that are really relevant to younger people. You will see imagery in the videos and in the book that I think speak to diversity and inclusion. One of the things that I personally caught myself doing was, like we used gaming as an example in several of the examples, with the launch of PS5, Xbox Series S. And immediately I go to, because I have two sons, I think of guys gaming. And, if you look at the stats, there's a huge population of women who are gamers, So we tried to make that really obvious in the video, which you'll see, and within the imagery of the text as well. So again, I didn't sit down and say, this is going to be about diversity, inclusion, and equity, but I tend to think that way. So I think you'll see that represented in the material.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. So that's all we have time for questions. Do like some hand raises and then a Zoom as an applause. But thank you, Terry, so much. Oh yeah,
Sure.
lots of hand raises. Everybody loved your presentation. It was really
Thank
great.
you so much. Thank you, everybody. And again, terry@strategicglue.com or via LinkedIn. I will answer any questions that you have. And, I just can't thank you enough for taking your time to spend with me this morning.
Thank you. And just so everybody knows,
Thank you, Stu Ken.
this is recorded. So if you missed some of it or you want to watch it again, because some great information in there, you can rewatch it later when we send out the recordings. Up next is Keynote with Donald Cecil. So I'm going to post the link to that. So hope to see y'all there.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.